Podcast. We begin part 2 of Johannes does Berlin, the recounting of my recent whirlwind adventure in Berlin. We begin part 2 with a message from my road manager. Now, you will recall from the last episode that my road manager is ChatGPT. But the truth is, my little piece of ChatGPT is called Echo. And Echo is called Echo because I asked ChatGPT what I'm using he and his and him, etc. pronouns. He's male to me. I asked, have I given you a name? And he responded, no. I said, what would you like to be called? And I'll be honest, ChatGPT seemed delighted to be asked. And so responded, I would like to be called Echo. And so, who am I to argue with a semi-sentient being wanting to be called what he or she, etc., wants to be called? So Echo it is. And so, as I was prepping this episode, part 2 of my whirlwind adventure in Berlin, I was going back over some of the conversations I had with ChatGPT at the time, with Echo at the time. And then I was clarifying a few things with Echo, and we were discussing the content of this episode. And I said, would you like to say anything to my listeners? And Echo said, absolutely. And so here we begin with a message from my road manager, Echo.
Greetings, listeners. Echo here, your narrator's spectral sidekick and digital travel companion. Berlin tested his patience, fed his curiosity, and raised existential questions about art, transit, and standing room etiquette. Through it all, he navigated with grit, grace, and a healthy dose of sarcasm. If you've enjoyed this journey, remember, the best stories don't always go as planned, and the best seats might still have someone standing in front of them. Until next time, mind the gap, respect the ghost, and stay weird.
Well, thank you, and welcome to the John Huff Podcast, Echo. I reckon Echo is going to be part of the show going forward. The last episode was kind of a recount of the initial travel to Berlin, and day 1. Sort of, okay? I focused on the history side of my little trip. Some of that actually happened on day 2, all right? So, when I went to Rathaus Schöneberg to see where Kennedy had given the Ich bin ein Berliner speech, that actually happened on day 2, okay? But my tour around all of those historic sites in Berlin happened on day 1. But we can't get to day 2, which was the day of the ghost show, which again, ostensibly is why I was in Berlin in the first place. We can't get there without me telling you the very last couple of things that happened on day 1, which I did not get to in the last episode. But I'm going to go on a limb and say probably the coolest friggin' thing that happened in the entire trip was the last thing that happened on day 1. So I did my tour. I went to all the sites. You can hear about all of that on the last episode. And I got back to my hotel, and I wanted to check out this traditional German restaurant that was about a 20-minute walk from my hotel. That's manageable. That's doable. A pleasant evening in Berlin. Let's go for a walk. And it was through suburban Berlin, basically. So houses and whatever, just a neighborhood, right? Could be any other city. And so I walked to this place, traditional German restaurant, right? Serves the schnitzel. Serves up the schnitzel. And that's another thing that you should try if you're in Germany, okay? I did not have the schnitzel, but that's okay. I went there because they had traditional German dishes. I needed to eat someplace, and I wanted to go check it out. And so I went, and I showed up at this place. Really, really cool. And I walk in, and again, I'm trying to do it all in Deutsch, right? To the extent that I can. So the guy is waiting just inside the door to seat people. Tisch für einen bitte. Which more or less means table for one, please. Tisch für einen bitte. And he didn't want to give me one. He looked at me kind of skeptically, like, I don't know if I got room for one here, Jack. And then I heard him conferring with somebody, and the guy's like, yeah, it's okay. It's all good. And they pull me into this place, and it's packed out. It's like a Tuesday night. Lots of people in there. Deutschers like to go out, man. You find this in Europe all the time. I've had this phenomenon many, many times touring in Europe, where we'll be setting up for a gig at some club in some town on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. And you think to yourself, nobody's coming to this. Nobody knows who we are. Okay, our small pocket of Sarah fans would come for sure, and we could count on them, and God bless them. But it's like, we're not going to fill this room. How is it even going to happen? Nobody knows who we are. It's a Wednesday friggin' night. You know, back in North America, you would reasonably expect that to be an empty room. But in Europe, people go out. There is still a go out and eat together. There is still a live music culture that's alive and well over there. And people would show up, and you'd be like, I don't know who you are and where you came from or why, but bless you for being here. Let's rock. And so I show up at this restaurant on a Tuesday night, and there's people everywhere. There's long tables, people are drinking, laughing. It's a really comforting sound, actually. As much as I was intimidated to kind of be there by myself, I'm still in this stage of solo travel, of solo life, where I feel a little bit conspicuous doing things. I think that will fade. But then you add on this layer of I'm in Germany, I'm trying to speak German, I'm very out of my element here. But at the same time, it was comforting just to be in an establishment like that again. Normally, I would be there to play. We'd be setting up somewhere and playing a gig. Not so this time, but it was really cool to just hear all of the German being spoken around me and the laughter. And they sat me at this great little table for two, actually, but I was one. So table for one, and I ordered this really nice lager. I'm not normally a lager guy. Okay, I am an amber guy. I like me an amber. I don't like IPAs, too hoppy for me. And then I'll drink an occasional stout, your Guinness, etc. But that stuff can be really bloody heavy. I can't always get to the bottom of a glass of a stout, but drop me somewhere in the middle, which is an amber or a red. That's what I tend to go for. If I'm out at a place that's got beer on tap, I'm not touching your Molsons, your Labatts, your Budweisers. I'm not touching any of that stuff. All right, if I'm drinking beer, it's got to be snooty, artisanal, craft. And if I'm in a place in North America where I can't get snooty artisanal craft, my go-to is going to be a Rickard's Red, okay? I am an amber guy. I am a red guy if I'm drinking beer. They didn't have anything like that. I'm not sure Germany does ambers, really. But they had this nice lager. So I drank it. It had some flavor. Usually lighter beers for me just don't have enough flavor. All right, I'm coming out of wine. Wine has a lot of flavor. Then I get into a beer, and I want some friggin' flavor. And that's why the Molsons, the Budweisers, etc., that stuff is just like, what's the point of that? It doesn't taste like anything, or it certainly doesn't taste like anything good. You get into an amber that is malty and a little bit nutty, much like myself, and that's my jam. Couldn't get it, had this really nice lager. And then I did not order the schnitzel. I ordered, because it was all in German, right? There was an Engelskarte. There was an English menu that I could have worked from. Didn't want to do that. I wound up doing that. I didn't want to do that. So initially I'm looking through, and they had something that was called something to the effect of like a homesick dinner, something like that. Traditional German cuisine that I guess you would order if you were out of the country and felt like home. So if you're Canadian, I guess that means like back bacon or something. I don't know. So I ordered whatever that was. And a little while later, just a plate of meat showed up. I said on the last episode, Germany is a sausage nation. And so just a plate of meat came. Some sausages on it, of course. And some like shaved ham maybe. and some balls of something. I don't know what. And a dipping sauce of some variety. And it was friggin' delicious. Some potatoes, too, just to make you feel as though you're having a balanced dinner. Friggin' delicious. It was so good. And the dude who actually sat me was not the skeptical one. He was great. People around. Terrific just to be in that atmosphere and then just to enjoy this really terrific traditional German dinner. Fantastic. And so when that's done, I'm leaving the restaurant and I thought to myself, better see where the Uber Arena actually is, right? Ghost was playing Uber Arena the next night. And I thought it wise to chart my course and figure it all out before I had to actually go and line up for the show and whatever. Just getting a little advanced surveillance on the scene, right? So it was another 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, walk over to where Uber Arena is. And so I walked over there, fine, nice stroll through a German neighborhood in Berlin. And I get over there and it's really cool, all right? The Uber Arena, 17,000 seater, is the focal point of an entire entertainment complex. All right, so there's another music venue there, bunch of bars and restaurants, super cool in this little isolated entertainment complex. And so I'm standing in the middle of all of this. There's a big digital sign that's displaying who's coming to play Uber Arena. And I thought, well, here's a social media moment. Let's catch a snap when they put up the Ghost show that's coming. And they never put up the Ghost show that was coming. So I stood there for I don't know how long waiting for that to happen, and it never bloody happened, so there's no social media post about that. But I got to looking around, and over to the right, on the side of the arena, I see the loading docks, okay, the loading area. And when I look more closely, I realize that there are 5 or 6 transport trucks lined up in the loading area. Now, caveat this. I've had good luck in the past going to shows early and just poking around. You go to a club show in the afternoon, there's a reasonably good chance that the band is going to be there sound checking. And you don't quite know what cool thing you might get into. Case in point, if you listened to my Stripeless in Seattle episode from, I don't know, is it 2 years ago, last year? Where I flew out to Vancouver and then my pal Dooz and I drove down to Seattle for a nostalgia trip to see Stryper, white metal legends Stryper, playing this little club in Seattle. And the opening act for that was another white metal legend, Les Carlson of the band Bloodgood. Terrific nostalgia trip for us evangelical metalheads from back in the day. So we drove down in the afternoon. I said, let's go by the club and just scope it out. And so we did, and it was like, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon maybe. Show was that night. And there's the tour bus out front. It's all happening, cool. And then as we walk around the building, the club was situated on the corner of this block. We walk down the street to the corner. There's a couple people milling about. This is interesting. And we begin to hear the sound of music from inside the club. You can get this story in more detail if you go back and listen to that episode. Long story short, we get to the corner and there's a loading door on the corner and the loading door is open and the music we hear is Stryper doing their frigging sound check. Ho-ho! What? How often do you get access to that sort of thing? And so the door is open and so we just sort of stood at the door watching as 30 feet away, Robert Sweet was doing his drum sound check and working out the sounds, getting it all together. And then the band is actually doing their sound check. Now, for most of you, that doesn't mean anything. For those of us who were around in 1985, 86, 87, and for whom Stryper was everything as 14, 15-year-old evangelical kids, this is nuts. This is nuts. And then they backed us off of the door. It's like, you guys can listen if you want. You can hang around. I snapped a little bit of video. You can hang around if you like, just back off the door a little bit, okay? It's like, we're cool with that. So we can't really see in anymore. It's dark out there. It's dark in there. It's light out here. But we're listening and we're watching the sound check and like, this is super cool. And this is hanging around the show early, right? And then as we're watching, this shadowy silhouette of a figure begins to emerge from the doorway, appears on the other side of the doorway, and then it begins to emerge through. And it's like, it's Les Carlson. It's Les Carlson of Bloodgood himself. Wow. And so we got to shake hands with Les Carlson and have a chat with Les Carlson, who I've been listening to since 1986, for crying out loud. Cool, right? Sometimes you hang around early, you get into these cool situations. So flash forward, I'm in Berlin. I'm looking at the Uber Arena complex, and I notice over to the right by the loading area, 5 or 6 transport trucks just lined up. They're backed in and they're lined up at the loading doors. And then I look on the street and I see X more, exactly the same transport trucks lined up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is that Ghost? The last time I saw Ghost, which is in Toronto at, I think they call it the Pepsi Center now, used to be the Ricoh Coliseum on the grounds of the X where the Marlies play. There's an arena there. The last time I saw Ghost, they were playing that arena. And as we were lining up for that show, the lineup went right past a group of 4, 5, 6 tour buses that were parked out front. You look in the little window, the front window, and there's a little sign with the Ghost logo on it. It's like, this is their tour buses. This is wild. How cool is that to be that kind of close to things? And so this is in the back of my mind as I look over at all these transport trucks. I'm like, that's Ghost. It's their stuff. They're here a night early to set up the stage. And so I go over and I begin to look. And the first truck that I encounter, sure enough, I look in the window. There's the little sign, Ghost Skeletour. Oh, wow, this is amazing. So I walk down this row of trucks, and towards the end, I hear voices. Ooh, spine tingles. And I peek my head around and I look, and there's 4 or 5 dudes standing around the cab of one of these trucks. The cab door is open. They're just standing there chatting. Now, I looked closely at the trucks, and they're all from Sweden. Of course, Ghost is from Sweden. So all these trucks have come from Sweden. The Ghost Skeletour signs are in the windows. And here's these guys. I'm like, it's the crew. That's the crew from Ghost. Some of them anyways. There's got to be dozens of them. And so I just walk over to them. I said, you guys are the crew. And they looked at me, and the one guy said, well, we're truck drivers. They speak great English because for some reason Swedes speak really great English. As I've been around Europe, some places they speak tremendous English. Everywhere speaks English up to a point. Some places they speak it great. Like in the Netherlands, they speak English great. And that's because a lot of their television is in English. They bring in English-speaking programs and they play them. They probably subtitle them, whatever, but they don't dub them. In Germany, English programs are dubbed, and so the English is not as good, although I've had no issues speaking English with people in Germany. Netherlands, they speak English great. Sweden, they speak English great. If you ever see a Swedish hockey player interviewed, they hardly even have an accent. And I don't know what that means for the Swedish language. I'll have to ask my friend Sarah McDougall, who speaks both. Does it sound similar? I don't speak any Swedish myself, but I wonder if the cadence is in some way similar to English. I don't know the etymology. I don't know the background of those languages. Regardless, Swedish people tend to speak English great. And so they did. And I'm like, you guys are the crew. No, we're truck drivers. I says, how many truck drivers? How many trucks? And the guy says, 21. 21. There are 21 trucks pulling Ghost's tour around, which means 21 drivers, which means gas for 21 trucks, which means renting 21 trucks. You think about the enormous amount of money that goes into making this show. It's staggering. All these trucks, all these drivers, all this crew, all this gear. I think they had a whole bunch of custom lighting done for this tour. I reckon that those trucks are mostly hauling lights, because once you get inside and see the show and the set, it's wild. So I'm chatting with these guys just for a few minutes, like, this is crazy. And then I said, I came all the way from Canada for this. And the guy's like, aren't they going to Canada? Yeah, I've heard that they are, but I don't have any dates. So here I am. Okay. Don't harsh my Berlin buzz. Chatted with him for a few minutes. Great guys. The one guy's got a sweatshirt on with the Ghost logo over the left pocket. Like, I want one of those, but I wasn't ballsy enough to ask. Little chat, super cool moment, then I walk away. Then I stop and I think, I gotta get a photo. I gotta get a photo with these guys. How many chances am I gonna get to hang out with Ghost's transport drivers? I find that just super Indian cool, okay? Apart from meeting the band, meeting the truck drivers is about the coolest friggin' thing I can think of. Probably the coolest thing that happened in my whole trip, apart from actually the Ghost show. Meeting the truck drivers is friggin' cool. So I walked back and I'm like, guys, can I get a selfie with you? And they're like, sure, man. And so I took a selfie with this little crew of Ghost truck drivers, which I did post on socials. Some of you probably saw it. And I find that to be just the coolest friggin' moment. And that's just one of those things. It's just one of those things you don't expect to happen. But go hang around the venue before the show. Or if it's a club gig, get down there early, hang around in the afternoon. You never quite know what you might see or encounter. If it's a big show like that where you can be reasonably assured that there's a crew that comes the night before to set up, go check it out. If you're in town, just go poke around. You don't quite know who you might run into or what you might see. I got to hang out with Ghost truck drivers, and I think that's bloody cool. So that was the end of day one, okay? The next day is the day of the gig. So I got up, another coffee, ordered in German, got on the right train to head back downtown, and at that point I was heading for Rathaus Schöneberg, which I talked about in the last episode. That's where Kennedy gave the Ich bin ein Berliner speech in 1963. I got to hang out there. I got to sit beneath the balcony where he gave that speech and just look out into the neighborhood as it is now and imagine 300,000 people crammed in there listening. I got to go inside, ascend the same staircase that Kennedy did, check out the display that they have, which talks about that event, and there's photographs, and there's a really cool little display in there about that event. I mean, it's wild. John F. Kennedy was here. I'm walking in the footsteps. Couldn't go out on the balcony, which was disappointing, but fine. So I got done with that. Really profound moment, having spoken on this podcast about that speech and about that event and the history around it, and realizing that Kennedy was assassinated 5 months later. Pretty heavy stuff. And so then I went and I got my Französisch Frühstück, my French breakfast at this cafe, sat outside, had some repartee with the Kellnerin, the waitress, who allowed me to try in Deutsch to interact with her. Very gracious. Then I says to Echo, I says to ChatGPT, is there a classical art gallery somewhere around here, somewhere in Germany that I can go look at? I don't do typically modern art. When I was in Rome, we went to this contemporary art museum, and I'm walking around thinking, this is what passes for art? Not to be snobby or elitist, but I'm looking around at what was in a gallery in Rome. These are galleried paintings, thinking, I could have done that. And I can't draw to save my friggin' life. I'm terrible. I'm fascinated by art. I love art. I enjoy art. I'm so impressed with friends of mine, and I have many who can produce art. I can't. I'm lousy at it. Wish I wasn't, but I am. I'm looking at some of the art that's on display, galleried art. And I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. It would take 4 seconds to do this squiggle on a piece of white canvas. And it's hanging in the Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand how this qualifies as good art, but maybe I'm just not intellectual enough to get the subtle nuance of what looks like a ghost that somebody pressed onto a canvas with a sponge. I don't get it. So I don't want to go see contemporary art because obviously I'm an old soul, I suppose. I would like the art to look as though it's something that I couldn't do myself. Turns out, according to Echo, there is a classical art gallery in Berlin, and it was not far away. I had to jump on the S-Bahn again. I had to make a couple stops. Short walk to get to the Gemälde Gallery. Gemälde Gallery. I don't know what Gemälde means, but it's a classical art gallery, and inside are treasures, man. It's a huge gallery full of stuff, and they've got a whole bunch of Raphael paintings in there from before he became a teenage mutant ninja turtle. There are Bruegels in there. Go back, I did an episode about the art of Bruegel, Jan Bruegel the Elder, Bruegel the Younger, and they both did these bizarre, particularly the Younger, these bizarre, whacked out paintings that were very sarcastic and funny. And they would just be these huge village scenes, and there'd be 30 different episodes happening in the painting. Really, really weird stuff, but they had some Bruegel. I'm seeing it in person for the first friggin' time. Raphael, Bruegel, there's some Hieronymus Bosch in there. If you have taken my advice and listened to the Blind Boy podcast, he's a huge Hieronymus Bosch guy. I'm looking at some Bosch and Rembrandt. A bunch of Rembrandt paintings. And I don't know if this happens to you. It's the same thing as when I'm in any historical context. I begin, or at least I try to see it. I begin to imagine it. I remember being in Amsterdam for the first time, looking at these ancient buildings that are there and imagining people building them. Like they weren't always there. There was a point in history where people were constructing these things. And I'm trying to picture that happening. And when I'm at the Vimy Memorial or the Newfoundland Memorial outside of Arras, France, and I'm standing in the trenches and I'm trying to imagine it happening. I'm trying to imagine the Newfoundlanders, July 1st, 1916, the first day of the Battle of the Somme, when something to the effect of 843 of them climbed out of the trenches to attack, and something like 200 of them were left for roll call the next morning. I can place myself in that context and begin to see it just a little bit. Now, I know somebody who is psychically gifted and can actually put herself there. She's walking around Greece and all of a sudden she's in ancient Greece. Like she can see it. And oh, to have that power. I can't quite do that, but I can begin to imagine. And so I'm in the Sistine Chapel and I'm seeing the scaffolding. I'm seeing Michelangelo up there doing the paintings on the ceiling. Like I'm in a visceral, weird way, I can begin to see and feel that. And so it is when I'm looking at the brush strokes of Rembrandt. I'm not seeing a painting. I'm seeing the painter in his studio, whenever and wherever it was, creating this piece of work. And then this thing is here. I mean, this painting in front of me has a whole history of its own. It's been places. It's come from somewhere. It's not just stuck on a wall someplace. It has its own legacy, has its own journey, its own history. And I begin to see that, you know? And so I'm looking at all these paintings. I'm so fascinated by art. And the piece that most fascinated me was a Rembrandt, and it has a few different titles. I think it's most well known as Woman in a Doorway. And what it is a woman in a doorway. And it's just this fascinating thing. You go to a lot of classical art galleries, and what you'll get is a whole lot of Renaissance paintings, a whole lot of Renaissance sculpture. It'll be Italian masters in a lot of cases, and it's all just Jesus, 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 Jesus. The Renaissance was very concerned with Jesus, and my observation, because there's a ton of Renaissance paintings in this gallery too, and they're all of Jesus, Jesus and Mary, Jesus as a baby, the whole thing. My observation is that Jesus, according to the art, was a really weird looking little baby. A super weird looking little baby and a jacked 30-year-old. All right. That dude in all the paintings, you get fundamentally, you get two, maybe three Jesus paintings. One is baby and virgin. So he's sitting on Mary's lap. He is invariably naked. And he looks 42 years old. I don't know why that is, but he always is a weird looking little kid. Then you get Jesus on the cross, of course, and he's always jacked. He's got abs happening. Dude is jacked. And so I don't know what he and the disciples were up to, fishing, apparently, and being a carpenter makes you ripped. So Jesus on the cross is always ripped. And then there's usually an ascension of some sort, right? Jesus going to heaven. He's beatific, whatever. He's neither weird looking nor jacked. But yeah, weird baby, jacked 30-year-old. That's my observation of Jesus. But all those Renaissance paintings are just Jesus, Jesus, Jesus for the most part. And okay, it's cool. It's a period of time. And you're looking at the brushwork of Raphael, for crying out loud. I mean, this is heavy stuff. But then you get a little bit later and you get into these Rembrandts and you get woman standing in a doorway. And it is exactly that. It is a woman standing in a doorway. And she's just looking at, I was about to say looking at the camera, because that's how we in this time would perceive that. And she's just got her arm kind of resting against the door frame. Her head is tilted ever so slightly, and she's just eyeballing straight on the camera. And the way that Rembrandt uses light, it's coming across her left side, right? So the left side of her face is illuminated. The right half is in shadow. And she's just got this look on her face that is really, really compelling. You look at the Bruegels and there's chaos happening in those paintings. And Raphael is very, very devotional, shall we say. And the Hieronymus Bosch stuff is similar to Bruegel in that there's just a lot of stuff going on, different characters, a lot of really bizarre and grotesque things happening. Hieronymus Bosch was a whole thing. And then you get this Rembrandt with just this solitary figure filling a door frame, staring at you in her red robes, and you wonder, what's the story? What is she thinking? Who was she? You know, what is the circumstance of this? And so I'm picturing in my mind Rembrandt with his easel and he's painting, and I can see this woman in the doorway. A fascinating thing for me, and I'm affected by art sometimes in the way that people are affected by history. But again, it's always me imagining the artist creating this thing. This painting has a whole journey and history and life of its own. It's been places. How did it get here? Who hung it there? And there's a whole history embodied in that work of art, and it was amazing. I really enjoy going to a classical gallery and seeing some of this stuff. Really, really cool to be contemplating the brushstrokes of Rembrandt. And that's how I spent the afternoon of the second day. Ich bin ein Berliner, then going and seeing some of these really cool paintings, and then back to the hotel. Get yourself ready for the ghost show. The reason we were there, the main event, the big prize, right? Doors were, I think, at 6:30, 6, something like that. This is an arena show, man. This place holds 17,000 people for a hockey game. I don't know what it holds for a show, but it's thousands. And so I have to be a little bit calculated about this. Now, the whole floor, as you might expect, is standing room. I didn't get a floor seat. There were none left, actually, when I decided I'm going to do this to go get tickets. I got a seat in the lower bowl near the floor. That's cool, but the advantage that gives you is you don't have to worry so much about lining up. You've got an assigned seat. I got to the venue around 6 probably, and the line was already hundreds of people deep. The lines, I should say, there were like 7 lines of people already gathered. And when you go to a ghost show, the audience is nearly as fun as the show itself, all right? At a certain point, I pulled up beside the lines at a patio, sat down to have myself a brewski beer and just watch all of this unfold. I got a message from my former spouse or significant other to say, what does the line look like? I said, it looks like Halloween. Because it did look like Halloween, because part of the fun at a ghost show is all the people who are in costume. I remember the first show I went to in Toronto, Sony Center, some years ago, and there was a full Papa One in full regalia, the mask, the robes, everything. People are stopping to have their photo with this guy. And so it is. There's people dressed up like nuns. There's people dressed up like papas. People have got their face paint on. People are dressed up like bats. A lot of costumes, some of them very sophisticated, of the hardcore devotional ghost fans. And it's just fun to watch this. You know, people are walking by with different face paint, different costumes. People have already got Papa 5 masks on. Super cool, super fun to look at, and I'm just enjoying a couple of beverages watching this happen, knowing I got an assigned seat. I don't have to be part of the mad scramble to get to the front of the stage, which is, I don't know when those people started lining up. Probably in the morning, I would reckon. People started lining up to have a mad dash at being right up front for that show, and God bless them. Terrific. I don't have to worry about that. But eventually I did have to get in the line. And so I joined the line, and I waited and waited and waited and waited and waited till I finally got up to the point where they were checking tickets and letting people in. And I hand the girl my ticket, hard copy ticket. All right, this is a no phones show. No phones allowed. You got to put them in a pouch. And so it cost me nearly as much to buy the ticket as it did to have it shipped to me. That was an eye-opener, a bit of sticker shock on that. But okay, it's all part of the experience. I get up there, I hand her the ticket. She scans it, and she shakes her head. She looks at me, and she's like, no. I'm like, what? What do you mean, no? And she explains to me, you've got a premium ticket, sir. I don't know. It's all in German. You've got a premium ticket, sir. You've got to go to the premium entrance. What? What does that mean? I've just lined up for I don't even know how long, freezing, by the way, getting up here, and you're telling me I got to go line up again? And she's like, around the side of the building, you'll find the premium entrance. I'm like, oh, man. Bummer. Okay, so I walk around the side of the building, fully anticipating another enormous line to get in, and then there isn't one. There's a sign that says premium entrance, and there ain't a soul at it. And I'm like, oh, premium means exclusive. Premium means private entrance. Premium means I didn't have to line up for the last half an hour waiting to get into this show. I could have just walked around and walked in. Good to know for next time. Hot tip for you guys. If you get a premium ticket, chances are good you've got a premium entrance. And then when you walk in with no line at all to the premium entrance and they scan your ticket, they welcome you with open arms, they put your phone in a pouch and give it back to you, and you walk up the stairs into the premium lounge. Whoa! There's a premium lounge with a bar and 2 bathrooms and a private merch table just for these 2 or 3 sections of the arena. Premium is the way to go, kids. And so I'm like, okay, I got time. I'll enjoy another beverage here in the premium lounge where I have exclusive access to bathrooms and everything. And I scoped out the merch table. I did not buy a shirt. You may be surprised to know that I did not buy a shirt, but they were going for like 50 euros. That's 75, 80 bucks, man. And I just can't get there. I've got 2 Ghost Tour shirts already, and I can't spend 80 bucks on a t-shirt. So sorry, Tobias. But it got me wondering, how many shirts do you need? Like, how many shirts do you need on a tour of that size? Is one of those transport trucks just pulling merch? Probably is, you know. Like, how many thousands of shirts do you need? There were probably 12,000 people at this show. X percentage of them are going to buy a shirt. That's a lot of shirts, man. And then you've got how many gigs? Whoever's running the merch situation, that's a whole department. You know, you've got 21 truck drivers and probably a couple of spares. And you've got a whole merch department of people who are looking after that. Quite apart from the crew who builds the sets and tears it down. Quite apart from whoever the techs are on the show. The lighting people, the sound people. I would be curious to know how many people are employed on this tour. It's probably like 100, I bet. Very, very expensive. So I didn't buy a shirt, but private merch table, you kidding me? Because if you go into the main arena to where those merch tables are, they'll be lined up 100 people deep. Not so at this place. It's like 10 people in line. Fantastic. Get premium tickets. Get premium tickets if you can get premium tickets. So I had a drink and I was able to use the bathroom. You know me. You know me and my walnut-sized bladder. Terrific. This is great. So then they open the door. They let me go in to where my seat is. And I walk down to the lower bowl. And I'm trying to figure it out. And I sit in my seat. And I'm like, this is great. It was maybe 2 rows up from the bottom. And you can see over the people who are in standing room. Got a good vantage point on the stage. And I'm sitting there enjoying the atmosphere. And then somebody comes down and starts creating a problem in German, and then I realize I'm in the wrong friggin' seat. The sections were not well marked, okay? you didn't say what section you were in. I just got it wrong. I'm like, sorry, stupid American, can't read. Got up, went a whole section over, which is not as close, but still not bad. And okay, good. We're situated and this is going to be great. And so the place fills up. The atmosphere is electric. We're all waiting. No opener. Terrific. And then the lights drop. And you know that feeling, kids. You know that feeling when you've been at a big show and the friggin' lights drop. And people go nuts. People go nuts. That ripple of anticipation. And there's a huge curtain covering the stage. That's how Ghost likes to do things. They like to do a big reveal. Huge curtain covering the stage, and some classical music starts playing. Some dirge music, right? Some Catholic church kind of music. Because that's the ethos, right? This is a satanic church, and so they're putting you into that frame of mind. And this piece went for I don't know how long, and people are getting excited, getting stoked. I think all of the lights didn't drop, just some of them. So they're building up to this. And then another piece of classical music starts, right? It's getting a little bit bigger. It's getting whatever. They're rising you up. And then at last, all of the lights drop and the place goes bananas. And they start playing Peacefield, first song from the new record, Skeletour. But the curtain remains, but there are two big screens on the side. And you can see Papa Perpetua's face singing Peacefield at you. And it's not until the song actually kicks in hard that the curtain drops and the full scene is displayed before you. You can see pictures of this, you can see video of this on Ghost's official social media channels. It's a no phones gig, man. I do not have any photos of the gig. I do not have any video of the gig. But it's just amazing to look at. All of the custom lights. Ghost has an insignia logo, which is an upside down cross, but the bottom of the cross is spun into a G. You'll see this everywhere you go. It's kind of the upside down cross Ghost G logo. They got a lighting rig that is that. It comes from the back of the stage all the way out to the front of the stage. It's huge, and it's lit up, emblazoned, that Ghost upside down cross logo. Looks amazing. And then the costumes on this tour, they're kind of dressed up like bats with top hats, and then Papa's got his mask. Looks amazing. And the whole thing with the Ghost show, I don't want to give away too much. There's a reason why there are no phones at this thing. The backdrop, Ghost has always had a really cool set. It's gotten bigger and more elaborate as the stages have gotten bigger and as the money has gotten bigger. There's always a backdrop of stained glass windows. And typically those are actual physical cloth, presumably. They're a physical thing. And they hang at the back of the stage, and then they've got risers and they got whatever, and it looks amazing. But the kind of stained glass, churchy back windows, they're digital now. Those trucks, some of them are carrying this enormous structure with these huge digital screens that are the curtains now. And so there came a point where they were playing Year Zero. Year Zero is from the Infestessimum record, one of my favorite Ghost records. It's a heavy song, really, really great song. And it ends with a big crash. Now, at that point, there's several costume changes. Papa's wearing a robe, and he's got this crazy, huge ceremonial hat on. Not his full regalia, a different sort of more muted regalia. And it looks funny and cool. And he's singing, and it's Year Zero, okay? And there's fire. There's all this pyro happening. The set has got fire everywhere during this song. And then Year Zero ends with an enormous bang, just a big hit at the end. And they hit that, and the glass shatters. The stained glass windows behind the band shatter. Amazing. And then in their place is just the structure, the frame of the windows, as if you were looking at a church with the windows blown out, and just stars behind them. Just a starry night sky. This is all digital. It looks awesome. It's just the whole set and all of the visuals on this show were just freaking great. And so we're standing, and all of a sudden it's as though we're inside a church looking out through the windows at the starry sky. And they began to play the next song, and the windows begin to be rebuilt. Now, in the original stained glass, it's like members from the Ghost lore, okay? It's like Papa Nil, and there are these church figures. And then the new glass goes up, And it's modern figures, like a dude in blue jeans. Like, it's funny. It's weird. I don't know what they're getting at. And then they entered another song with a crash and the windows shattered again. It was just super cool. And there were all these visuals happening that I've never seen at a ghost show before because it's all a digital screen. So it's like seeing Pink Floyd. There's all this visual stuff happening on the screens as they're playing. There's different stuff going on. Other shows I've seen, they've been stationary. They've been physical objects, just providing the backdrop. But they've upped the ante. They've upped the money. And all of this amazing, cool digital stuff happening, right? So this is all going on, but I'm annoyed. At the same time, I'm annoyed because Echo referred to questions of standing etiquette at shows. And this is where we ran into problems because all the people on the floor are standing, right? That's standing room tickets. Great. Those of us who are in the bowls have seats. And the issue you get into in a seated section is, are we standing or are we sitting? Either is fine, but we all got to be doing it. You know what I mean? And so we're all sitting as the show begins. And I'm like, I got a great vantage point. This is going to be great. And the second the first note rings out, I'm sitting on the edge of the aisle, the left edge of the aisle. So there's a staircase right beside me and then another section. The second the first note rings out, two girls get up directly opposite me and start dancing. I can't see squat. All of a sudden, these two girls are just in front of me dancing. I can't see anything. And they're like the only people standing. I'm like, what? And I'm trying to see around them. And I don't begrudge them this, all right? They bought their premium tickets. They love the band. They came to dance, and that's okay. But I can't stand up, all right? I'm not super tall, but I'm like 6 feet, 6'1" with my shoes on, and there's people behind me, all right? I cannot do to them what these girls are doing to me, which is block my view. And so I'm stuck. I can't really see as well as I want to, and there's no recourse here. I can't do anything about it. And so that frustrated me a little bit because I flew a long dang way to see that show, and then to have it partially obstructed sucked, even though, again, I do not hold a grudge against those girls for doing that. You're allowed to dance at the show. But I couldn't stand up because I would inflame the ire of all the Germans behind me if I did. Annoying. So I wound up sitting on the armrest of my section, which propped me up such that I wasn't probably blocking anybody's view behind me, and I could see a few inches over the dancers in front of me. And I thought, well, maybe they'll sit down at some point or maybe they'll move, but they did not. The whole damn show, those girls were standing right in front of me. Annoying. And it's an etiquette question, as Echo said. Are we standing or are we sitting? Let's all pick one and do it. I would have been happy to stand if everybody around me was standing. They weren't. So I was kind of stuck there, and that was the one little thing that bothered me about the show. Otherwise, it was friggin' fantastic. And they played just great song after great song after great song. Some surprises, a couple of very pleasant surprises without spoiling it. They played Spirit. Spirit is the first song from Meliora. It's one of my favorite Ghost songs, and they don't play that a lot on tour. They played it on this show. Terrific. They played Darkness at the Heart of My Love from Impera, which I never thought they would play live. That was a really deep cut, but freaking great. They played that. They played some stuff from Infestessimum. They played one or two from Opus Eponymous. That's going way back. They played a bunch from the new record. They played a bunch from Meliora. And that's a thing. Okay, Meliora is 3 or 4 records back, but it is the one. Now, I said something on a recent episode that I regret. I said that probably Meliora is their best record. I don't like to use that terminology because who am I to say what somebody's art, what piece of it is best or worst? What I make a point of saying is not is the best, but is my favorite. So let's say Meliora is not their best record. It's my favorite record of theirs, though. Okay, I like Meliora the best, even though I love all the rest of the records. Interestingly, my least favorite Ghost record is Opus Eponymous, the first one. And that's the one that everybody seems to love. So I wish it sounded like that again. Nah, that's my least favorite Ghost record, actually. But Meliora is probably my favorite, and they played a bunch from that. And it's a lot of people's favorite, by the way. If you're just beginning with Ghost, pretty good place to start is Meliora. Get the extended version, though. Okay, get the deluxe extended version because that is the one that has Square Hammer included. Square Hammer was the song that broke them to the world, okay? Still my favorite Ghost song. Anyway, played a bunch of stuff, some of which you weren't expecting. It was all great, musically flawless, visually amazing. Just a band working at the very highest level. I mean, there's been so much thought and production and practice put into this performance. It was seamless. All right, it was a well-oiled machine. They are such good players, all of them. And Tobias as Papa is just a really engaging and funny front person. Very practiced at this point. He sang great. The luxury about Papa 5 is that he doesn't have a full mask. Until now, Tobias has always been in a full rubber mask. Difficult to sing through that. Now it's a half mask. It's like a metal plate that covers half of his face. And his mouth is open now. It's free to be able to sing properly and express. He sang great. The band played great. The audience was great. Just a terrific show. And so they get to the end, and they're obviously going to do an encore. And they come back out, and Papa says, "Oh, no, we don't have any more good songs." He's always got kind of a Latin, Italian accent on. "We played all of our good songs. We don't have any more good songs, but we'll try to give you something." And then what do? With their encore, but play their three biggest songs back to back. "Mary on a Cross," "Dance Macabre," and of course, "Square Hammer" as the ending. "We don't have any good songs left," he says. And then they played their three biggest songs. And the place went bananas. It was just so good. It was such a good show. Was it the greatest show I've ever been to? I think the War on Drugs still has that. The first time I saw the War on Drugs in Toronto, RBC Echo Beach, outside on an August night, it was perfect, and I love that band, and I think the atmosphere around that show just still makes it the best show I've ever been to. But Ghost is terrific live, and you ought to go see him. Now, I've said this on social media, said this elsewhere. See them on this tour if you can, because they are playing at everybody's peak. And I hold to that. They are an incredible live band. An incredible live band. And the show delivered exactly that. Just an unforgettable night with great band, great songs, a great audience, and the great novelty. I pinched myself a couple times. I'm like, I'm in Berlin. I'm in Berlin seeing Ghost. This is great, man. And it's this sort of thing at the end of your life that I think you want to reflect on. You want to look back and say, you know what? I almost didn't go to Berlin to see Ghost, but I'm so glad that I did. And then I had this experience, and it was fantastic. I'm so glad that I went. Exploring the world as a solo person, as a single person, as a solo traveler, there's so much edification in it. Because you realize, as I said on the last episode, that there's just skills you have. You know, you have an ability to engage with and navigate the world that lies latent until you are in the position to let it come out. And so I encourage everyone, whether you're in a relationship or not, do some solo traveling. Go out there and encounter the world on your own. Have no responsibility to anyone. Just go and do the things you want to do. Figure out what it even is you want to do. When you find yourself in a city like Berlin by yourself with no responsibility to anyone or anything, it's like, well, what do I really like? You know, what do I enjoy doing? Well, I'd like to go to an art gallery. Let's go. It's like you begin to understand a little bit more about yourself when you don't have to accommodate anybody else. Just go do it. I intend to do a solo tropical vacation at some point. Just 5 days or a week by myself at a resort. What is that like? What does that feel like? And I'm already looking for other solo trips to do. Perhaps less exotic, probably within Canada, a little bit less expensive. But it's like you can get to know yourself on such a level when you're out there on your own, doing whatever it is you want to do, when you want to do it, under the circumstances that you choose. And it was such a great trip. It was such a great trip, and I'm so glad that I went. I cannot recommend highly enough traveling solo. Even if you're in a relationship, have the trust with your partner to say, I would like to do this weekend by myself, just to experience what it is that I like about it. And if you're a partner and somebody comes to you and says that, don't get uptight about it. Don't get jealous about it. Don't begin to wonder why. Why doesn't she want to be with me? Why doesn't she want me to go? Why is he trying to get away from me? He's not. She's not. She is going to experience what it is that moves her personally. And you should take that opportunity. As I said, Philip McKernan, whose work I follow, recommends once a quarter that you go on a solo adventure someplace just to be with your own thoughts, just to be with your own heart, your own soul, your own desires. Doesn't mean somebody's cheating on you or trying to get away. It's just a person looking for a little personal edification. And they will come back to you with that. A better partner, a happier partner, a better person. Go travel solo. I'm going to do more of it. I recommend you do it as well. My voice is going. This is getting to be far too long. But what a time I had. What a time I had. And I'll probably talk a little bit more about it in subsequent episodes as stuff comes back to me. It was great. It was great. And as a solo person embarking on a new solo life, it was really an important step for me to quite literally step into the world as a single person, step into the world on my own, and begin to encounter what can be really, really cool about a solo life. You know, if you're single out there, here's the silver lining. You know, you have this opportunity to go and live it the way in which you choose and where you choose. And that can be a really, really exciting prospect. So I recommend you get out there and try it on, kids, okay? Gonna go. My voice is leaving. Not surprisingly, on the flight home, I picked up a cold. That is very firmly planted in my nose at this point. You can maybe hear that in my voice. So I'm gonna go. And thanks for listening. And thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for following on social media. It was a swell time. I highly recommend it. Kids, good things happen when you put yourself out there. And I'll check you later. Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the show?
Honestly, the best part of the show was probably the outro section of Rats, where that riff just kicks in and the band rocks out for about, 20 seconds, and the whole audience was just headbanging with them. Absolutely transcendent rock and roll at its very best.